So, Iron Lung, an indie game made by David Szymanski, exploded onto the YouTube scene a couple months ago and has become one of the most hotly discussed indie games of the year. This nautical nightmare sees you catapulted to the sea floor in a tiny submarine to photograph pirate treasure or some shit. But while you're down there, you come to realise you're not alone in the dark waters. It has the two key factors for indie horror success. Number one, it's scary. It utilises fear well, slowly building tension throughout the game. This makes it an interesting game to watch and incentivizes YouTubers to play and advertise it, not to mention it has an attractive jump scare thumbnail. But the second thing is that it also has a fascinating yet vague lore, leaving players wanting more and actively discussing and hyping the game. The game itself is only a few hours long and doesn't really have any meaningful replayability. What's keeping it around is the horror of the environment and universe. And that's what I'll be discussing today, precisely what makes the game and setting it takes place in so scary. Right, I think everybody's making a bit of a fuss about nothing. Reset the scanners. It's just a mistake. Sir, we have. The stars, the planets, they've gone. Oh. Holy shit. Guys, we're not being funny. Can you actually shut the fuck up? I'm trying to get to sleep. The game takes place after an event known as the Quiet Rapture. All stars and planets vanished without a trace, leaving behind a select few moons and spacecraft that were travelling the void at the time. Important to note is that no known survivors saw exactly how the planets disappeared. Was it an intentional act of divine might, or some kind of quantum glitch? It's hard to pick which is more frightening. A deliberate act of intended malice, to punish either the raptured or those left behind, or an anomaly of reality, highlighting how powerless we are against the laws of the universe. I'm going to assume it's the former. The ocean is filled with human blood and funny lights. I'm guessing that's not natural. Well, I mean, I suppose anything could be possible in this big old universe. I hope NASA notifies me when we find the ocean filled with piss. Ugh. Definitely belongs to Bryce Dallas Howard. The utter cosmic dread of an event like the Quiet Rapture is only heightened by nobody knowing why it happened or what it was for. If the survivors were fighting to bring the rest of humanity back, then it would mean hope is still alive. But nobody even knows where to start. They send someone to the bottom of the anomalous ocean, not because of some slender hope that they can make things right, but simply because it's the only thing left to try. It's a compelling setup for a universe that can be summarised in just a few paragraphs, and that's all it needs. It's a perfect example of letting the player use their imagination to think up whatever's scariest to them. Oh shit, okay, forget that. You hail from the Consolidation of Iron, a coalition of a few tiny space stations and spacecraft that have formed a simple society built upon democracy. The COI numbers only 257, an extremely low number for the number of space stations and spaceships. That isn't the population of a small spacefaring society, that's the population of a dwindling few survivors. It makes you think that perhaps these aren't traditional sci-fi ships with a common area and wide hallways, but something closer to what we have today. Looking at the limited technology used in the SM-13, it wouldn't be too extreme to assume that maybe these space stations aren't as advanced as typical science fiction. Maybe not even possessing things like artificial gravity. They're less like floating bastions and more like frail, cobbled together husks protecting its inhabitants from the darkness of space. We also hear about an opposing group of survivors on the appropriately named Eden space station, containing the only known surviving plant life, as well as 468 other survivors. It was formed from the Martian population that were in orbit at the time. How Eden is described, as well as its larger population, certainly indicate that it's a more desirable place to live, and the more powerful military force. It recently destroyed a COI space station, Filament. The Battle of Filament is the only other major lore event we know of prior to the game. Something notable here is the detail concerning prisoners taken from the Eden military undergoing conviction realization. Firstly, this sounds like sus code for brainwashing, but also this is the only other time prisoners and obtaining freedom are mentioned. It could probably be assumed that the player was a combatant during the battle at Filament Station, and this is why they're imprisoned and later put inside the Iron Lung.
No, box is safe zone, box is safe zone!
Canonically, you are a Martian. See, the thumbnail wasn't lying, okay? The game's namesake certainly is the most memorable location found within the game. In other games that heavily feature a vehicle, it's adored. But here, the Iron Lung, or SM-13 as it's also known, is a janky little piece of shit. When playing for the first time, there's a genuine fear that the submarine may break on its own. It's beaten into you that it's made from scrap and prone to faults.
I'm seeing some voltage irregularities in the instruments, so keep an eye out for sparks or flames or anything like that.
So hearing the groans takes your mind away from the horrors outside, instead wondering if your new prison will also be your executioner. Oh shit, quick, get the sci-fi fire extinguisher. The entire game takes place inside this claustrophobic little sub that creaks and groans and appears to be slowly leaking. Towards the end of the game, you're up to your knees in blood, and the walls turn crimson, signaling the pressure of the ocean is beginning to overwhelm the submarine. Later in the game, you can find another iteration of the Iron Lung, the SM-8. The SM-8 log states that your sub, the SM-13, was made with little care. Ideally, it's disposable, just to gather the information needed and remove a criminal from the population at the same time. The SM-8, however, was a genuine exploration instrument, piloted by science nerds and a valued piece of equipment. Oh, and look, it got ripped apart down here and scattered across the seafloor. Oh shit. The pressure at the seafloor is already too much for the SM-13, that's made of sci-fi metal and sci-fi superglue. If the hull breaks, you won't drown. You'll be crushed instantly by the pressure of the water around you. Water pressure can be a pretty scary thing. I'm just gonna say Byford Dolphin and leave it at that. There's something so mysterious about oceans in remote places. An added level of mystery. It's one thing to go where no man has gone before, but another to go where not even the light has reached. A hidden abyss on an already enigmatic world. The fact that you can only observe your surroundings through a blurry black and white Nikon 2002 means that you're never quite sure of what you're actually seeing. The flow of gameplay is specifically designed to slowly build tension. The first sites you visit are fairly innocuous nodes in the ground. You can just assume they're rocks. Then you visit the artifacts. The name sounds mysterious, but without prior knowledge it's easy just to assume that they're plants or strange rock formations. Then you leave the safety of the narrow trenches into the open water. Naturally you feel uneasy now that you're exposed on all sides, making it all the more unsettling when you reach the fourth objective and you see this. Suddenly, the fear of the Iron Lung dissipates, and you're now listening carefully for every groan outside of your submarine, and dreading every ping on the radar. Now that you're on edge, the game can begin to unleash the spooky shit. The next object you encounter is the whale bones. If you had any doubt that what you just saw was your imagination, here you have solid proof that life does, or did, exist down here. There's a house, which implies this place was once dry land, but also whale bones implying this was once an ocean. What's going on? Land whales or underwater Martians, take your pick. As you move north, the growing sense of dread is reinforced by the environment seeming to die around you. The plant life is replaced by rocks, and now the bones of dead beasts and ghostly whispering lights are all that's to be found. You want an explanation? Go fuck yourself. Things become more stressful, the dwindling oxygen, the rising blood, the fire. It's all intended to make the player hyper alert, to be as attentive as possible as they desperately try to photograph the final objective in time. Man, that's a big fucker. It's not surprising the fish is the most memorable part of the game. Most thumbnails just feature a random scary fish found on Google Images, at least use the right one. The iron lung has no offensive capabilities, meaning you are completely at the mercy of anything else down there. Better hope this thing is all full up on whale meat. I've seen a lot of theorizing that this eye doesn't even belong to the main fish, implying there's possibly even larger creatures down there. The same mystery surrounding why a blood sea appeared on the moon also applies to the fish. It's to be assumed that they were deliberately put there, but why? The way they stalk you certainly seems like they possess some kind of intelligence beyond that of a simple animal. Szymanski must have taken influence from anglerfish, another horror monster first introduced in 2003's Finding Nemo. I mean, the mouth shape, the dead eyes match up, and these things are already the scariest fucking thing under the sea. Quick, dump all the car batteries. I'm having fish tonight. Is a sequel or some other major expansion to the universe coming? Yes. I'm racing to get this video out before it drops and 15 more people make the exact same points I made. But credit to Mr. Szymanski, he's made a fucking awesome original premise and people want more. I wish him the best. I hope Iron Lung 2 features PS1 minigames explaining how the fish murdered 5 kids in a Denver pizzeria. Luckily, Iron Lung actually seems to have stayed out of the YouTube Kids circuit. I.e., I haven't seen Iron Lung plushies on the crane game at the arcade. I hope maybe this can be an example of how to do indie horror right, nurturing an enduring community rather than going straight for the MatPat Jacksepticeye kids monetization style that dies within 2 months. But really, who knows what to expect? As submarines are sent down and destroyed, will we ever know what everything down there means? Why did the rapture happen, and how will mankind endure? What will we do when the light of the stars passes by, leaving us in cosmic darkness? I, for one, can't wait to find out. So thank you guys for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe. In my notes it says thank you all for 50 subscribers, but in the time it's taken to edit this, we've gone all the way up to 64, which is just pretty mind-boggling. So thank you all of you guys who have hit subscribe. It really does mean a lot that people are like enjoying whatever the fuck you call this content. But thank you, really.